This is the Lord's Day lesson for November the 30th, 2025, here on Following Him, the Disciple Life. The Christian takes contentment above and beyond. Yes, above and beyond. Above what many would consider to be reasonable, beyond what many would ever think is rational to expect when it comes to contentment, beyond and above what many that would claim to be Christian would do, and the sort of contentment that they would expect of themselves and that they would think is required. Consider what Paul said in 1 Timothy 6, verses 6 through 8. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. Now, so far so good. Nothing really that he said so far that would bother most. Godliness with contentment. Maybe if somebody was feeling a little bit of resentment about something or caught up in a lot of covetousness and greed, that the word contentment might give them issue. But for many, godliness with contentment is great gain. They might could see that. They might could understand that. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Now, so far, so good. We're kind of speaking in terms that are not really being completely applied yet. I mean, there is definitely an implied application in those words, but still, these are words that somebody could take, and if we could stop there and we could just kind of say, none of it, having anything, none of it matters, because I didn't have anything when I got here, and I won't have anything when I leave. So none of it matters. Okay. But then notice what Paul says. In having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. This is where you lose a lot of people. And that happens sometimes with the teachings of Christ. These are the teachings of Paul. Paul is an inspired writer who is writing by inspiration of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit was revealing the things that were from Christ. Look in places like John 16, 12 through 15 to see more about that. Food and clothing. For many people, we should just be content with one car and this house, and list some things that, to be fair, relatively speaking, are pretty basic. I'm happy with just, well, does anybody have cable anymore? Well, just this basic cable is enough. For those still that are still doing cable, I think that's waning and diminishing quite a bit. I don't have to have the fastest, internet or the newest phone. I'm content with just this smartphone. When I consider all I can do right now with technology and what I can do, like I'm recording this on a phone. It's such a weird statement if you went back 30 years ago, and now it's commonplace that and with food and clothing, and for that time period, it's like maybe a set of clothes and a change of clothes. Like it wouldn't have been much back when things were much more labor intensive, hence a lot more expensive, and the average person had a lot less expendable income. And food, we're not talking about, for some people, and of course these days I guess fast food has become more of a luxury, but for some people, they're really cutting back when, they're not going to the regular sit-down restaurant, but they're going to the fast food, which I guess is at least a little bit cheaper, or they're buying the cheaper, instant meal, whatever it is, something that's still more expensive than if you take time to make it yourself. But the ways that we think of as cutting back and what we think is not living wealthy, back then it would have been basic stuff. They would have had some salt and a few spices, a few things to flavor food with, some, bread, basic grains to eat of some sort, some basic vegetables, meat. And lots of times back then it was meat occasionally, because it depended on where you live and your economic strata as to, how much animal protein you were able to get a hold of. There's so much that we have right now And he's saying food and clothing. But even that contentment with food and clothing, we need to put that in its cultural context when he was speaking and recognize that it would have been much less than what we have now. What we think, okay, I'll be happy with just my, 50 changes of clothes and just my refrigerator and freezer and pantry full of food. Even that doesn't compare. Christianity takes contentment to a whole other level. So as we're finishing up Give Thanks November, and we're getting ready to go into December Joy, a month that can be, a lot about material stuff, and so can November. And for many people, the materialism that sometimes is found in December began in November. Let's make sure we have our contentment in place. Thank you for being with me. This is the Lord's Day. Make sure that you are assembling with Christ Church, and shalom.